And of course it's gonna.
We got it. We're live.
There it is. That's we're dancing and we're live.
Did we lose John? Did I kick him out?
Did you kick him out?
I'm not sure.
It's only good like that. So we're on week 87 now, right? Yeah. So
Yes.
we got people walking out behind me, and
John coming in. Yes.
He's coming in.
I hit the wrong button.
Okay.
I thought it was me. I was like, oh, okay, nice. Good job, Kaylin, kicking the winemaker off.
No, it was me. It was my foolishness and my I'll just call it Tourette's fingers on the type board.
It happens. It happens to the best of us.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yes, I can only images come to my mind after that. So anyway.
Right.
Week 87. We're here.
Yes, we're here.
So
let's try to have some professional decorum.
Yes, let's get together.
It's
so
with the family here.
So we are going to be tasting through wines from our holiday bundles. Bobby did select the wines and did a great job. We'll be trying the 2019 White Wing, followed by the 2012 Estate Reserve Merlot, and then finishing with the 2017 Ranger Haze. And Joe Becker will be joining us shortly. He got a little hang up at home, but he will be on here soon. But I don't have any of the fantastic words that either of the Doctors Becker share at the beginning of the broadcast. So do you want to wax eloquent?
Can I try?
Go for it. No bad words.
No bad words. Let me see if I can do a Dr. Becker impression. Back when I set the laws in 1578 about the Viognier. Guess who's getting fired tomorrow? No. Well, welcome everyone once again. And what week is this, Bobby? 87 weeks. Well, first of all, we do need to raise our glasses. We're starting with the White Wing to all those healthcare professionals keeping us safe and sound, to everybody that's been helping us get through the pandemic, but more importantly, to our friends and neighbors who give us the emotional support that we all need. I would like to say cheers to everyone. And also looking forward to this lineup, by the way, Bobby. So thank you for picking this.
Awesome. No, it's a pleasure to do this.
All right. So for everybody at home, we are starting on the White Wing, the 2019, which has been a perennial favorite at the winery. I don't know if I should tell a story on myself, but I'm going to before we get into this. When I first started 10 years ago as a winemaker at Becker, Bunny Becker was talking about wine that she really wanted to make called White Wing. I, in the stuffy ear, heard Right Wing, and I was like, oh, okay, well, a wine called Right Wing, that's kind of odd, but, and I mentioned Right Wing, and Bunny turns around, looks straight at me and goes, White Wing, like the dove.
That's perfect.
Nothing like making a great first impression on your boss. So this Sauvignon Blanc comes from the vineyard on the estate. So when you all are visiting the winery out on Yenski there in Stonewall, as you come down Yenski, the first vines you see on our property are the Sauvignon Blanc that this wine comes from. So why don't we kick it off? So Kaylin, you've got your nose into that glass. What do you get?
Really good smells. No.
Yeah. Really?
Smells great. I'm picking up maybe a bit of melon, maybe like some honeydew.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that realm. Also little hints of floral, maybe honeysuckle, other white flowers, and maybe just a little bit of honey. But on the palate, I'm getting some really lovely, like bright white peach, maybe little hints of Meyer lemon.
I kind of like the smoothie that you're describing.
It sounds delicious, right? And maybe just a little hint of vanilla, not anything overpowering. But this is one of my favorite wines, and I drink it quite often. That's my glass of choice at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's just delightful.
Right on. Bobby, what are you getting off the nose there?
I'm agreeing with the floral notes, kind of almost getting like a white lilac
Mm-hmm.
Kind of floral characteristic. I'm getting a little honeycomb. A hint of vanilla, like a vanilla bean on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
And on the palate, just kind of some Meyer lemon, of course. Just that nice, kind of almost more lemon on the sweet side, not as tart. A little bit of zest. And just a faint hint of oak just kind of sneaks up right on the finish. It's not like, it's not overpowering. It's just very subtle, but it's beautiful. Really.
Well, it's kind of funny because quite a bit of this was fermented and aged in brand new French oak. So, but again, back to balance. I harp on balance a lot when we talk about wine. I think that's my soapbox of choice, apparently. But honestly, it is about balance. When you're trying to make a good glass of wine, it is about getting all of those characteristics in balance. White wine is so much more difficult to make than red wine overall, as a general rule of thumb. There are some difficult red wines out there. I can think of one right off the bat, Pinot Noir. This is a very temperamental red grape to deal with, unlike Cabernet Sauvignon, which is a grape that has a lot of forgiveness, especially for winemakers who may be tired and not paying attention. It is a very forgiving grape.
So would the Pinot Noir act more like a white varietal then? I mean, with the thinner skin and
as far as that goes, it's the temperamentalness and what you have to do. I mean, there are obviously differences there. Like what the white wines makes them so very difficult is keeping those floral characteristics intact. It's so very easy to lose those during fermentation and during handling.
Right.
And you really do. And people wonder why I'm a schizophrenic weirdo during harvest. It's because we've got 37 different varietals of grapes. We make 49 different SKUs out of those grapes, and every one of them has to be different. And everybody looks at me like, "Hey, buddy, don't you know what you're doing?" And the short answer to that is not always, but hey,
here we are. No, I mean, you initially get the white varietals in first, so I mean, there's such that small window of time to deal with them. I would see that the stress levels are like up here.
Well, it was funny because this last harvest, when Kaylin walked out on the crush pad, she's like, "So I'm going to take some pictures. Am I going to be in the way?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "So over here," I'm like, "That's fine. That's fine." She goes, "So what are you doing?" And I looked at her, I'm like, "Making wine." It's like, thank you. I needed that in my life.
Fair. That's also true. It wasn't incorrect.
I know, right? But the look that you gave me was like, really smart, Alec. I knew that.
Just wait until you walk into my office and say, "What are you doing?" And,
I
get to answer with the same dry delivery.
Exactly. and I do bother you a fair amount. So I guess turnaround's fair.
From time to time.
So I'm actually liking this. So at first, I'm not going to lie, when I first opened this, I smelled a small amount of wet cardboard, and I was worried that I may have had a cork-tainted bottle.
Yeah.
And it's not. It wasn't really cardboardy. It was reduced. So it needed some air. The florals are coming out. So that's so why it's so very important to decant white wines the same as red. You do need a little bit of that air. You do need some of that interaction to get those terpenes to open up and get going. So, but Sauvignon Blanc is one of my favorite varietals to deal with. And it's funny, for years in this industry, Chardonnay was the love child, and Sauvignon Blanc was kind of like the forgotten grape, but it's such a beautiful grape to deal with. There's so many wonderful white varietals out there. I mean, our Viognier, Roussanne, Sauvignon Blanc, Marsanne, even in here in Texas, there's even some odder white varietals out there. But if you say you're a red wine drinker, you don't drink white wine, you are doing yourself a disservice. You need to explore the white wine world.
Totally.
Sorry, forgot to put my phone on mute. So yes.
So I like to pour this wine whenever I give tours. One, because it's obviously from the estate, and that's always really nice to touch on. And I'm always surprised by how many people try to stop me and say, "Oh, I don't like Sauvignon Blanc. I don't like things that are grassy or green."
Right.
And I get to say, "Hey, just give this one a quick chance."
Yeah.
So, would you care to perhaps explain why this one does not come across so green or herbaceous or grassy? And it's
Sure.
more tropical?
Yep. So in Sauvignon Blanc, cooler weather breeds more grassiness. That almost, we use the term cat heat a lot with Sauvignon Blanc, especially with New World Sauvignon Blancs that you get from New Zealand, cooler parts of California and Oregon. You get a lot of that herbaceousness that's borderline. If you've never owned a cat, you won't understand what that term is. And I know it sounds gross, but the grassiness in Sauvignon Blanc is actually borderline a fault on there. We've come to accept it as something indicative to Sauvignon Blanc. With the heat or the warmth in a warmer climate, you get more tropical notes. So it's the same grape, but you diverge into two completely different realms of what Sauvignon Blanc is. Warm weather Sauvignon Blanc tends to produce the more tropical notes. You got Kefir lime leaf, you've got lemongrass, you have white peach, almost honeycomb or linden flower. Sometimes I've heard lanolin, the sheep's fat that they use in skincare products, lanolin, that very heavy odor. The heaviness there, because there can be a heaviness, a more viscosity to warmer weather Sauvignon Blanc. And of course, we are in a very cool climate here in Texas, where it barely gets above 104 in the summer.
Very mild.
Very mild. In fairness, it does bring out more of the tropical notes and more of those stone fruit notes that you described in Sauvignon Blanc. One of the many reasons the tastings have been so beneficial for me, I've discovered so many more varieties to love. That's from Susan. Susan, thank you for that. Of course, she's been with us since probably almost the very beginning, if not the beginning. We get a lot of, and Gary's on again. I always have to look at his comment to see what he's going to give me hell over. Cheers and howdy from Drift. Okay, smells like December. If December smelled like Sauvignon Blanc, does that make January Pinot Noir?
Yeah. Next logical step.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Hey, Kaylin, there's some lady named Belinda on here.
I know.
Right?
I know. Yeah. So this actually coincides with her bowling time. She's a league bowler. And so on Wednesdays, I know. So that's what she does on Wednesdays. So she makes a point to get on to say hello and then catches up later, which is very kind of her.
Now, we all want to know how good of a bowler is your mom.
She's pretty good. Yeah, and I'm actually not a bad bowler myself. I don't often like to talk about my accomplishments, but I can bowl pretty well. I'm not pulling 300s or anything like that, but I can bowl well, especially if you think I might just be a novice bowler walking in.
Yeah, see, I bowl extraordinarily well as long as those gutter rails are raised.
Those are helpful, critical to a good game. I agree.
Yeah.
And you use that little slide thing as well.
Yes.
You're set.
We took our nephews bowling once when they were, just wee lads. And we had the gutters up, and my niece was doing pretty well, but with the gutters, I beat her.
Sometimes, you have to still be competitive. You can't just let them win.
That's great.
It's a teaching moment,
It is. It's character development.
Next time your mom's in town, we need to go bowling.
I know.
Yeah, I know Mikey's always jonesing to go bowling. So
I love bowling. So we had family friends that had a bowling alley growing up, and so I spent quite a lot of time there. And then naturally, when your mom bowls regularly, you end up bowling regularly. Mm-hmm. So I've got my own shoes and everything. It's pretty serious.
Okay, so if we go bowling, I'm going to dress up like John Goodman in The Big Lebowski.
I love that. That's cool. I'll just be the dude.
Right. I'll make you White Russians if you wear your
I love a White Russian.
You wear your slippers.
Got it. Done. Sold.
Okay. I don't know how we got from Sauvignon Blanc to the Big Lebowski, but here.
Sauvignon Blanc Bowling goes well
We
together.
might as well throw Humphrey Bogart in there. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments about the Sauvignon Blanc before we move on?
It's beautiful. It's fantastic. You did pretty good, John.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Predominantly French oak, a little bit of stainless steel.
Mm-hmm. It always does feel weird for me. I've been doing this for 25 years, and it still feels weird for me to take a compliment about the wine and not. I feel like I always have to mention that it is not an individual sport; it is a team sport. So, not just the guys I get to work with, like Rachel and Daryl and Juan and Eddie and stuff in the cellar, which they put in 125% effort in everything they do. Especially Rachel, because she has to put up with me on an hourly basis. And I do feel sorry for her sometimes, especially when I come in there and change 1,600 different things. And she's just looking at me like, I just spent 6 hours getting this set up, and you come in 25 seconds. You're like, we changed from the Mayan Empire to
the Roman.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Belinda said next time she's down, it's a bowling date. So
I love it.
You better watch it, because with bumpers, I'm unstoppable. Wine drinking is a team sport too. Okay, Betty.
It is. Right. I second that.
Right. But anyway, just a quick reminder, every glass of wine has an average of 32 people that touch it between the time they harvest to the time you consume it. 32 people to bring you that glass of wine. So cool. That's just a fun thing to remember. And that's a rule of thumb. With my glass of wine, I cut out at least 16 of those. No, I'm kidding. All right. Shall we go on? Now, we decided, so there was a little bit of discussion, and I think it's all fair to let everybody know, prior to signing on to this broadcast, we were discussing the order of wines. Obviously we were going to start with the Sauvignon Blanc, but whether to do the Merlot or the Ranger Haze first or second. So we're going to do this in the order we decided, but I want to go back and forth. I would love for everybody to, if you're pouring the wine with us, smell both the Merlot and the Ranger Haze, and then we're going to taste the Merlot first. But it's just these noses that are incredible. So this is my Merlot glass, the classic big, bold Bordeaux style. I put the Ranger Haze in, I call it a Somme glass. It's actually, Riedel calls it the New World Pinot Noir glass, or is it Old World?
New World. New World,
okay. But I love this glass just for a general purpose glass as far as being able to concentrate the nose on things.
Right.
That 2012 Merlot's got a hell of a nose.
I know.
It does.
Can you believe how bright the meniscus still is? I mean, almost
that's
10 years old.
Shocking.
It's shocking how much color is still in this wine. And
I love comparing the noses to these two. I'm not going to make you taste both of them at once. And, quick, you have 3 minutes left to taste the entire thing. I just want everybody to smell both. I think when you're pouring multiple wines, I really honestly think so. One of the things I like to do, and if we have multiple glasses of wine that we're going to serve at dinner, and it's Thanksgiving coming up, Christmas and Candlemas and Santa Lucia Day, which is, I call in Sweden, I think they call it Little Girl Hair on Fire Day. That's the 7th of December, I think. Anyway, it's one of my favorite holidays. It's where the youngest female member of the household serves everybody coffee and stuff in the morning. It's a tradition. They wear a crown with little candles on it. I could never remember the saint day that it was celebrating, so I always called it Little Girl Hair on Fire Day. But anyway, when you're serving, yeah, I know I diverged. Trust me, I'm going to get lots of emails. Joe, thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry to be late, guys.
Oh.
So we are on the
Merlot,
the Estate Reserve Merlot. So 2012.
Right.
So this would have been your first Merlot with us, no?
Yes. Yeah. 2012 was the first vintage I made wine at Becker.
So John, I always like to know kind of what are the great styles of Merlot that kind of drive your palate, drive your winemaking process?
Well, we can always fall back on Pomerol as the safe answer, right?
Can't go wrong.
Sorry, I'm going to wait for you to take the next drink before I say my next comment.
Well, I have to say, I think this is in that direction.
But to be honest with you, Joe, I have always been enamored with New World winemaking, and I do not ever want to be misunderstood as if I'm disparaging the great traditions of Europe, especially the French, who will always have my heart. The Portuguese, my soul, and the Italians, my love. So, and the Spanish, well, they've got everything in between.
And the Irish are trying to get rid of you?
The Irish have already tried that once or twice. Yeah, apparently they're stuck with me for life. I've been trying to make wine out of barley, and apparently I just come up with this green liquid. But the Merlots, if you are not familiar with classic European wines, then you owe yourself a favor to familiarize yourself with those. I think the best thing I can say is that it will at least give you a direction where to go. But if you're not familiar with the West Coast winemaking in this country, California, Oregon, and Washington, and the Merlots that have come out of there, you are missing an entire beautiful thing. But Merlots out of Chile and Argentina, unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Years and years ago, I found a Merlot, Santa Ama Merlot out of Argentina, $3 a bottle. I bought an entire case and felt like I'd spent the family fortune. It was just absolutely this fruit driven, beautiful. The tannins were well balanced. Wow. And then when I started making wine in California years ago, they had these beautiful Merlots coming out of there in the mid 90s that were just incredible. Merlot as a standalone really came to fruition, I think, in the New World. That's where we really started focusing on single varietal. And as much as I harp on don't focus on single varietal, there are a few of them out there that are worth it. So Merlot has been a fun grape. It's a very forgiving grape to make wine out of, but you get this incredible juiciness and the nose just keeps going. That's what I love about the varietal.
Well, and I want to share, I teased you about it, but I actually liked what you said about France and Portugal. For me, this just gives me an excuse to tell one of my beloved childhood memories, which was going with my brother and my parents to Bordeaux in 1992. Kind of right as we were, starting to plant, get the winery off the ground, and one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. My father and I. Oh, you guys didn't lose me, did you?
Nope. No, you're still
Okay.
there. I had to
All
turn
right.
the video off for just a second.
Okay.
I didn't want to just get up and leave. My computer became unplugged.
Well, and many have heard this, but I always tell the story that my mother and father started the winery because they love incredible French, especially French wine and food pairing. And so, for somebody that was probably 13 those nuances were kind of lost on me at the time, but it was still a wonderful trip. And the reason I say that is that it got to a point where my brother, who can really develop the hangries, had enough of the 6 or 7. In fact, I can't believe I'm saying this. 6 or 7 course meals with tiny little servings of
right.
And so one night, and the same thing, and the other thing too is my father was having us take a chewable Pepto-Bismol tablet because there's been some evidence that it reduces GI illness when you travel. And so my brother and I were up in our room. My dad was like, "Where are you guys? We're down at the dinner. We were eating at the hotel. Get down here. You guys are running late." So my brother came out because we were eating at our hotel, and from his balcony threw several of these little Pepto-Bismol tablets at my father and said, "I've had enough of these meals." So he and I jumped in the rent-a-car and drove into the town of Bordeaux and went to McDonald's.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So Will and I sat on the banks of the river and ate McDonald's. I probably had a Royale with cheese, and but so when I in reality, and really when I taste these great wines, those memories are special to me.
Sure.
Those memories of being with my family, they're funny, they're fun to think about. But so I go back with what I said earlier, John. This wine is in the direction of one of those great Merlots, I think, and it's aged so nicely. I'd love to hear what Kaylin and Bobby think as well. But
no, let's just talk stories. Let's not include them. No.
Right.
No, just being a part of this and sharing those stories is just amazing.
Thank you.
I started wine at an early age too, because when we were 10 in our household, we got to have wine at special family occasions like Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, Mondays. I'm joking. But when I turned 15, I could have a glass of wine anytime my parents had wine at dinner. So that was, and you're right, Joe, they do tend to create some very wonderful memories.
Yeah. I was just thinking about too, how we've, how my father and my brother and I have discussed introducing his grandchildren, our children, to wine. And, he told a similar story. When he interacted with Robert Mondavi, that, when he was little, they were allowed, if they were good, they were allowed to have a piece of bread that had been dipped in wine. And that was kind of his introduction. And one of my favorite memories is, my 10-year-old is now 10. Several years ago, when he was probably 4, in the summertime, Mom and Dad would have, my wife goes to Corpus every week to see patients. And so my mom and dad would have us over on Thursday night to swim. And Dad always likes to have champagne in the swimming pool. So Nathan, my 10-year-old's first foray into wine tasting was me holding him and him sticking a pinky into my champagne glass and going, I was expecting like a bitter beer face, but it was like this satisfied taste.
Wow.
Of course, we were probably having Paul Roger, which is one of our favorites. But
well, if you're not satisfied with Paul Roger, you just, there's a problem. Or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier today.
Oh goodness. So what do you guys think of this Merlot? Bobby?
Oh my goodness. I think just what pops out immediately is like dark chocolate that just kind of hits me immediately. And then a little bit of get a little bit of dark cherry on that as well. That still showcases a little bit of almost rose petal.
Yeah.
But on the palate, definitely that dark chocolate, a little bit of tobacco, some forest floor. So, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, it's well balanced, like you were talking about earlier. Just, it's aged so well.
Kaylin, what do you get?
I'm going to say ditto at everything Bobby said, but I'm also picking up almost bay leaves, which is interesting. And I don't know if I'm crazy, but I definitely smell that. Mm-hmm. Also, maybe a hint of violet alongside the rose petal, and maybe even some like dried raspberry, dried cherry, things in that realm, as well as like some sweet tobacco. Mm. It's definitely chocolatey. You got that cocoa note to it. A bit of baking spice as well. And
I like that, Kaylin. I like that. I like the idea of the bay leaf and the baking spice. And I'm sorry I cut you off. But just to add, I'm thinking like just to, we're getting to winter, a dark, delicious stew with a bay leaf in it. Anyways.
It would be so good with this. And I'm almost picking up a hint of like sweet black licorice as well. And it's way fruitier than I would anticipate. And I know I didn't mention a lot of fruit components, but it's fruitier than I anticipated, especially off of my initial opening and then directly pouring it into this glass and then smelling it. I thought it was super duper floral. And then as it's opening up, I'm picking up some of those like dried fruit components that I'd mentioned. And I think it's just really lovely. Really lovely.
So, the wine aged over 36 months in barrel. So it was a little over 3 years. I think it was like 38 months in barrel before we actually bottled it. So,
and John, what's the blend on this? I apologize if you mentioned it already.
No, I haven't. It's a grape. It's called Merlot. It's a Bordeaux varietal, Joe.
I walked into that one. I should have known. I haven't done these in a while. I'm out of practice.
and it's okay. When we first started, because neither you nor your dad were on, so I decided to do a Dr. Richard Becker impersonation. So I started off with the Sauvignon Blanc, and I did this. I was like, so back in 1578, when I helped put the laws of purity in. Yeah. No, actually, this is just straight estate Merlot. This breaks most of my rules, which is basically don't focus on just one varietal. You can, if you could put a little bit of Cab in there, a little bit of Petit Verdot, but it's just straight Merlot off our back vineyard there. We had 10 or 12 barrels of it that we ended up keeping for 36 plus months. We used some of this Merlot went into our Claret blend from the 12 vintage. Some went into the Reserve Merlot from the 12 vintage. But this I kept as a project. So this was my first long-term age project for Becker. And that's the crux to the issue is for winemaking is that most of these fun projects take multiple years. And when you're used to a microwave minute, devoting multiple years is like centuries. It just, the only way to do it is to put it away and forget about it,
Well, and John, just to go along with that, I feel like the way you've blended it, this has got at least another 5-10 years on it.
Yeah. I was looking at the meniscus earlier and looking how bright it was. It still has a very clear edge. Now the secondary edge is slightly browning from red to brown. So it is, it's got some oxidative age on there, but that meniscus is still pretty damn healthy for a 10-year-old wine.
True.
Yeah. And, the longer you can age a wine on its lees, as long as the lees are healthy, the longer you can do that, the longer that wine will last once you bottle it. There's a direct correlation. It offers a lot of antioxidant properties on its own, healthy. It's very minimalist intervention. You will never catch me using the term natural winemaking because it is natural by nature of being on this planet. It is organic because it has a carbon molecule in there. So
there you go. There you go.
I got to be careful. Anyway,
it's funny that you say like the microwave minute. So like this aging for over 3 years in barrel, you're always looking at the next vintage. Like there's several vintages that are coming out for, in between that aging time, which is just, it's crazy.
Oh, and when you have a boss like Doc who constantly runs around and wants to know what you're doing.
Where's this wine
I think it's really, I have to say, I was just thinking it's really fun to be able to do this because to have these programs that you've created, John, because, like we always tell that story of the first year we had 1,500 cases. My my dad looking at the cases and my mom saying, that's great, Richard, but now you've got to sell it. But to go from a place there where we were starting, we were initially relying on selling some Muscat, but trying to develop those Cabs, those Merlots, the Chardonnay, the Viognier off the estate grapes. It's, and then 10 years later, we've got these, incredible growers in West Texas but it's still fun for me to taste these great wines off of our estate. I really enjoy that, but we've come a long way.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one of the funnest things to do, to be able to do as a winemaker is to be able to control the vineyard, control the fruit, control the process, to really kind of drill down deep into it. And not everything you do is always successful. And there's trial and error, there's a learning curve, unfortunately. I always liken it, if you're at a successful winery as a winemaker, it's kind of like going back and being, I don't think of myself as an artist, but going back and being an artist with a really good patron from the 1500s, it's somebody that's going to pay your commissions to paint these great frescoes and stuff. But that's what an estate vineyard is. You've invested the time and the energy into growing the fruit, into focusing in on what you want to do with the program. And the Hill Country grows has a lot of really good fruit, and we have a lot of really good potential, and hence why we're going through the vineyard replant and expansion now. And having had those decades of your experience on what worked and didn't work, being able to go back now and focus in now makes us even more successful as far as that goes. The vineyard, the varietals that will work here in the Hill Country. Folks like your dad and Drew Talent. We've got a lot of other good growers here that have developed a lot of good time and energy into it. And that's what makes success. That's why it's, winemaking is never an individual sport. It's a team sport, and it takes decades of devotion. We go back to Doc McPherson, 50 years plus 50 years ago.
Bobby Cox, Munson. Let's not forget TV Munson. That's true.
Yeah. Well, I have his original textbook. I just got that. Yeah. So it's got all these beautiful black and white plates of all these different varietals we've been collecting for years. So, this is a centuries old endeavor to get us to a good glass of wine.
So I'm guessing that a lot of the people viewing this, most of them probably know about TV Munson. Mm-hmm. And John, please jump in and correct me if I mess up parts of the story, but this is something that we love. Of course, we are Texans. We love to feel like everything's bigger and better here. And, in the 19th century, this former Confederate Civil War colonel figured out, to back up, the great vineyards of France were being devastated by phylloxera.
Yeah.
And, he figured out that the Texas grapes, the wild Texas natural grapes, were resistant to phylloxera. Yeah. And so he started, hey, Patrick, he started, everybody, our new general manager, Patrick Connolly.
Hello. I look forward to meeting you all individually.
Hey, buddy, I'm not coming in for the next 6 days, but I'll see you later. Okay.
Did you fill out a form?
Yeah, sure.
Paychecks, right?
Yeah. Joe, I'll talk to you later.
All right, sounds good.
All
right. But he figured out that the native Texas rootstock was resistant to phylloxera. So he grafted, they grafted these French vinifera onto the Texas rootstock and replanted most of the vineyards in France in the 19th century with Texas rootstock. So that's our claim to fame for probably the few of you that don't know that story.
Well, 90% of those vineyards, and they had almost a 90% die-off. And you look at the vineyards of France now, and most of those grapes are the rootstocks that were developed from Texas vinifera. But Munson had spent decades collecting in the drainages throughout Texas the wild grapes, identifying the different varietals, cultivating them. I mean, the man was a devotee to his craft for sure. And then, the Texas Grapes by Munson, it's a great book. It's a wonderful book that they did in the early 1900s. France did award him their highest Civil Award, and he got to go and get kissed and everything by a man while giving him a medal. So, but I mean, joking aside, we owe a lot to him throughout all of the U.S. too. The identification of phylloxera A and B, what rootstocks worked. A lot of our rootstocks that we grow throughout the different parts of the U.S. all originated because of those experiments and what was going on. So, yes, he was an extraordinary man, extraordinarily important, and who knew when they said the South will rise again, it was through a glass of wine in France. So.
Here at Becker Vineyards.
Yeah. Anyway, Texas has such an incredible corner of history when it comes to wine and winemaking. And then people, it's like, when they think that the Texas industry is brand new, and it's not.
No,
it's just been in its own little corner of the world, doing its own thing. So, just a long, slow fermentation. Anybody else have anything else to say about the Merlot before we move on? Joe, you're getting kudos on your stories, by the way. Everybody's saying
thank you. Thank you.
But be careful.
I love to tell them.
Gary Clark says something nice, and I don't know if you can take him seriously or not. So, and apparently Sam is stalking us because he's now down in the marketplace. I think he's trying to get to the house. So, yeah, I'm turning off all the lights. Kaylin, Bobby, anything else to add to the Merlot itself?
It's fantastic. And I remember tasting this in the tasting room a while back, and it's incredible to see how it has grown and evolved. And also it's fun to see how my palate's changed as well, and grown.
That is an interesting point. Yeah. Over the years, how our palates do change. Yeah. One day, because of, whether we've eaten something spicy the night before, or it's just changed over the years, our tastes have changed. Yeah. That has always been very interesting to me too.
I always think if you try something once and you're not picking up the same things that everyone around you seems to be picking up in general, you may not smell bay leaf on this wine, and that's okay. But I think it's always worth going back for a revisit, because if you had coffee followed by gum followed by orange juice because you're a masochist, your palate for the rest of the day might just be completely shot. So just
coffee followed by orange juice followed by gum. I like it. Don't forget the Colgate.
All of it, like, there's so many factors that go into what can make a good wine not be its best for you, be at its best presentation for you.
Right.
I can't tell you how frequently people come to the winery and they're like, "Oh, I've got gum," and I'm like, "Oh no, oh no."
I had to, years ago, I had to actually ban people from chewing gum and Altoids in the winery. My cellar tap from years ago, not here, but in a previous winery. They say it's like you can't taste anything, you can't smell anything, and all I would smell when I walked into the cellar was literally peppermint. That's just like no, not a good idea.
No.
Yeah. Okay, shall we move on then to
let's do it.
The piece de la résistance, to the Ranger Haze. Kaylin, you need to lead us off on this one.
So this wine, I will say that this has been a growing pain for me, as in this has not been my favorite wine until pretty recently, or it's not been on my list of things to grab a glass of. And that's just personal palate. And it could be like also factors like I eat all of the spicy food all of the time and chew gum. And also it was summertime for a while there. But I think especially following this Merlot, this wine just comes across incredibly rich, like blackberries and cherries and plums and like medley of berry, which I think is really in part due to it just being predominantly Malbec. But vanilla, cocoa, maybe some sweet tobacco as well on this. And it's, I feel like, softening up as well from when we first had it bottled. It's just really lovely this evening.
Yes.
Yeah, it's got a great nose. Joe, have you had a chance to?
I have. Yeah. I'm going to share more stories. So let me tee off with that, because I think it's, for people that haven't heard this before, this label was just absolutely wonderful effort. So the idea for Ranger Hayes, John Coffey Hayes was a former Texas Ranger who the sculpture that this label is based on depicts a battle that John Coffey Hayes was at Enchanted Rock and surrounded by the Comanche Indians. And what you do, the sculpture was done by a close family friend of ours who's passed away, but just an absolutely wonderful person, Clay Dahlberg, who I've known almost my entire life. And the detail on this sculpture is amazing. He's got the pistols on the rock. You can't see it on the label, but we always tell the story that he had 13 shots, that he was saving one shot for himself. Mm-hmm. Should he be captured, facing the possibility of a slow death, but his compatriots found him with one shot left. And so I love to think about this wine because it's, we traditionally have made, this used to be the Raven. This has traditionally been a kind of a Malbec blend and an homage to some of the great Malbecs from Mendoza region in Argentina. Something my parents had come back from a trip with my brother and his wife to Argentina many years ago that inspired the idea for this wine. But for me, what I think about when I look at it is that my parents first bought the property where the winery is in 1989. And they bought half of it at the time, and then they bought the remaining half that has the winery on it. It's about 320 acres. And that in itself is a story for another day, but Dad got it for an incredible bargain. There was a economic downturn at the time. But what I remember is when we first had it, we were clearing the land. And so we would go out there on the weekends, and I had this great Australian shepherd named Maddie, short for Matilda, as in the song Waltzing Matilda. And so we would go exploring and literally just get lost in our property. It was so beautiful that I loved the hill country. I loved exploring it. And as I got older, I found that I love riding horses. And my mom's friend, Suzanne Bernazzi, owned horses and had this great quarter horse named Bartender that had a beautiful white stripe down his nose. And so she kind of gave him to Mom, and I had a great saddle, and I would hop on Bartender and go with my dog or a couple other dogs, and we'd just go exploring. And it was sort of like it's probably the best way my parents could pay me for helping them back then. And I remember we would go everywhere, and sometimes my dad would come with me. He had another horse that was very tall named Shorty. So when I look at this wine, when I think about it, I think about the hill country. I think about coming back from my medical training in 2010, where I had wanted to see as much of the country as I could, and then coming back and realizing how much a part of me the winery, this place is, everything has been to me during my life. And so this wine has incredible meaning to me.
That's why I think you'll ultimately settled on the figure of John Coffey Hayes, because it's a sense of place.
Right.
And more so than anything, you actually exemplify what family wineries are, sense of place, where you come from, the expression of where you are. And that's absolutely what I love about wine.
Thank you, John. And I to go along with that, what I didn't mention is that John Coffey Hayes had surveyed our property, so he actually had a claim on it.
Right.
So what John is saying about place is just 100% spot on. Thank you.
Yeah, it is very important. So one of the questions that we've gotten from Debbie is, what determines the blend of the Ranger Haze each year? What are you looking for? So the original inspiration behind the Ranger Haze is those beautiful Malbecs that Doc talks about and waxes eloquent about, actually, on those beautiful Argentinian Malbecs and how they use the Petit Verdot to help blend in there and bolster it. So another example of new world winemaking with old world varietals, a twist on the new, a new twist on the old. And so that was the original inspiration behind the then Raven, now Ranger Haze, was just literally focusing in on Malbec. And, we've got a couple of different Malbec plots in our vineyard here, in the front and the back of the vineyards, the new and old vineyards. And then we also get some wonderful Malbec from Drew Talent up in Mason County. So this Hill Country Malbec is an extraordinarily good grape. Mm-hmm. But the blend is not predetermined necessarily, Debbie. We do want a Malbec kind of focus, so it still has to have that varietal character. A lot of it is also dealt with the fact that we do use some Petit Verdot. This particular one has a small amount of Merlot in it as well. Mm-hmm. That's just more or less to soften that mid palate. But it is a focused Malbec. So,
and that's yeah, and I agree with John. That's always been the case. Many of the former, Ravens and now Ranger Haze, much of those grapes have come from a great Hill Country vineyard, which is that of Drew Talent.
Yeah.
So I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with that.
Yeah. So the blend will always feature Malbec as far as that goes, but beyond that, we do use the Petit Verdot. We have used a little Cab in the past, or a little Merlot, like we did with this one. So that's the basic idea behind it, is just to give you a really good Malbec version. And quite frankly, I love it when people compare it to our reserve Malbec that we do at the winery as a separate Malbec. It gives you two different ends of the spectrum of what Malbec can do. That mincemeat edge, and then that more herbal edge.
Would you say that the reserve Malbec is a newer world blend for you, or is it the opposite?
I would say our reserve Malbec is much more North American New World edged, where this is more finesse, the South American, which is pays much more homage to their European roots. Of course, right. Spanish being the predominant Spanish, and then Portuguese being the two dominants there. But the Malbec is a beautiful grape that has done so very well in the New World. Yeah. It really found a home in Argentina, and it's finding a beautiful home here in Texas too. So, okay, guys, what do you want to add, Kaylin, to your wonderful Malbec, or Joe? I'm sorry, Bobby, have you had a chance to talk about the Malbec?
Honestly, no, but I mean, I loved hearing the stories, and just
right.
being in this moment with you guys is just so cool. Honestly, there's been a lot of different things that I've been picking up out of the wine while y'all are speaking and conversing. So, I mean, initially I got, like a bright cranberry notes to it on the nose, but then like subtle hints of fresh dill kind of showcases as well. So a little bit of herbal and fruit notes. But on the palate, it just, it like the whole like spectrum of, the expression of, the raspberries and the dark cherries and then a little bit of the plum, and then get that coffee and espresso kind of showcased right at the end. It just the layers of it is just beautiful. And, sharing this with, our members, I've been doing a little bit of a fun little tour while while we're doing the tours, through the production, but we're doing tours to the wine, we're tasting through the 18 Ranger in barrel and then 17 Ranger that's in bottle, and kind of showcasing, the difference, but also talking about, why we have the Ranger now, and how, like, the home, like, we're welcoming Captain Ranger Hayes back home here on the property. Because I mean, this was originally supposed to be like a homestead for him. And saying that, hey, our members, we're glad to have them a part of our home here, that this is really cool. So I just thought, I love it and really enjoy it, and it's become a favorite of mine as well. So
well said, Bobby.
Yes, absolutely. I have another question. So are the Texas Malbecs more like Argentinian or Australian Malbec? Very, very good question, because one, I love the Malbecs from the McLaren Vale area of Australia. And the spiciness that they have there is kind of nice. And I would say we have a little bit of both, but I'm going to lean towards the more warmth of Australia and that spiciness that comes out. And man, I'll tell you what, the Aussies can make good wine.
I think that's a great comparison.
I think too.
Especially I think our reserve Malbec has some elements in that direction.
Yep. There's just, at the end of the day, guys, there's just a lot of good wine made all over the world. Yeah. So I think what we need to do, we all need to quit our jobs and spend the next 10 years visiting every wine producing region and tasting every wine produced. Right? I'm sorry, Kale, let me just say one more thing. I'll have an occasional person that will ask me, are you a wine snob? And to me, no, because to me, I want to try as many different places in the world, as many different styles. I try to keep as open of a palette as I can. So I agree, John. Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you, Joe, I am a wine snob. There are only 4 wines that I will drink: red, white, pink, and bubbly. I will not drink any others. So.
Can't go wrong.
Wait, red, white, bubbly. What was the 4th?
Pink and bubbly. Yeah. Those are the only 4. Yeah.
Out of orange.
Stop it. You are too young to be a yuppie. Okay, you know what time it is?
My favorite time.
Exactly.
Can I ask real quick, Kaylin, did you have any thoughts on the Ranger Haze?
Well, I am really enjoying it this evening. So
okay. Oh, you said you'd found sorry.
Yeah, no, I was saying I would be very much okay with traveling wine regions for the next 10 years so I can taste as many wines as possible, develop my palate even better.
Let's work on it.
Right. I love that. Well, and I think I'll have to agree with John that I too am a wine snob who only drinks 4 kinds of wines. But I could even limit mine down to 1, which is just all of them. So
great.
But I've been thinking on food pairings and I'm so excited. I hope all of you are as excited as I am.
Well, I think we should be. So Bobby, you'd like to pick a wine and a food to pair, or do you want to do all 3?
I was kind of leaning, with the white wing.
Yep.
Probably doing like a chicken lemongrass, almost like some Thai food. Maybe.
Okay.
Then with that Estate Reserve Merlot, 'tis the season beef bourguignon. I mean, just it's kind of that beef stew.
Sure.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, those are my 2 go-tos right now.
Right on. Kaylin?
Okay.
I'm excited for this, Kaylin.
Yes,
I'm so excited. So I was thinking about it today because I was approached by someone to ask if I wanted lunch, but I had made lunch, which was very unfortunate. But Fresh Pickens has this sandwich, and it's called the Santorini. And for those of you who don't know, Fresh Pickens is just down the road from the winery. It's a fantastic little shop adjacent to a gas station. But they've got this sandwich, the Santorini, it's got turkey and goat cheese and dill and a little cucumber and like roasted peppers and things of that nature. I think it would be fantastic with the white wing. For the Merlot, I'm thinking just easy, like roast duck, roasted veggies. I think you couldn't go wrong there. All the savory spices. And then with the Malbec, I want a blue cheeseburger or the Stilton Blue that we just got in at the winery. I think either.
That's coming up, isn't it?
It's coming up, and I'm very pumped. I love blue cheese.
So tell everybody what's coming up.
So we've got Port and Stilton, which we may be running a little low on the port, if I'm understanding correctly. But no, we're not. Okay, I thought we were.
We'll
For
have
some
port.
reason.
When you come, we will have port.
We've got port, but we've also got Stilton blue cheese. And Stilton is the king of blue cheeses. It's fantastic. We're offering as a complimentary sample on your visit. Of course, we do not suggest that you start out with port on your visit to the winery because we want you to be able to taste the other wines before you get there. But we will have plenty of Stilton, plenty of port for you to try alongside. They are a fantastic pairing. And I believe we are still planning on doing the port shot station. However, we'll have to make sure it is manned just to keep everything safe. But if y'all are not familiar with port shots, it's a fantastic way to enjoy port in lieu of blue cheese if you're not a blue cheese fan, where you rim a little glass with caramel and enjoy your port as a shot and follow it with chocolate chip chasers. It's fantastic.
We used to pour those into chocolate cups.
We could. I'm not opposed to that. I just know freezer space and fridge space is limited at this time.
You know, the port and Stilton, just for those that don't know, is something we have done. I think it's one of the events we've done for 20 years, probably. It was originally my mom's idea. Mom and Dad had gone to my father loves, as many people do, loves the restaurant in Manhattan, Bernardine, and had taken Mom there. And they had a cheese course, wonderful blue cheese with port, and mom was sort of inspired there. I think they were on a wonderful date, but came up with the idea back then.
Yeah, it's a great thing. A little Stilton, a Ritz cracker, and some port.
Yeah, in the middle of winter, it's great.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm getting excited about that. So that's awesome. Okay, Joe, food and wine.
So I was thinking with the White Wing, I made my first effort at doing trout amandine on Saturday night. And I was thinking that would be, I wish that I'd had the White Wing for that. I love Kaylin's idea of I think the Ranger Haze is a great pairing for blue cheeseburger or a, just because I love to give Kaylin a hard time about this. At Brasserie Monchou, they have a Gruyere cheeseburger, which is like the most amazing thing. I mean, normally I'm always kind of like, do I get the, hamburger at the gourmet restaurant? Yes, this one is worth it. This is amazing, would be amazing with the Ranger Haze. On a side note, they actually just picked up our Cab Franc there, which is also a great pairing with that. For the Estate Reserve Merlot, I'm just going to be boring and say, actually, I'm going to say one of my mom, I'm thinking about my mom. She used to make something called a gâteau Magève, which was French for a nun's cake, and it was one of my favorite desserts. It was chocolate with layers of meringue, and it was just delicate and wonderful, and one of my favorite things.
Wow. Okay.
John, what about you?
I'm very, very hungry. Me, I don't care. Maybe I don't know the neighbor with the Merlot. No. Actually, Joe, I'm going to tell you right now that the perfect pairing is a little bit of Malbec with Merlot, and it makes a great dinner. No. With that Reserve Merlot, I'm going to go with a roasted fowl on there, and specifically, I'm going to go with a Scottish red hen. It's a grouse. Ooh. Yeah. With the Sauvignon Blanc, to be honest with you, I'm thinking of carnitas with the Sauvignon Blanc. I'm just craving that. I know it's just soul food to me. So with the Malbec, I actually had the Malbec with prime rib over last week. So I'm going to stick with that. Yeah.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
I have to say, I feel like when I interrupt you guys on these things, it's not me that's interrupting you. It's my stomach. It's like getting in there and being like, wait a second. Kaylin said bay leaf. I'm going to jump in on a stew or.
All right.
God, no.
So I apologize for my stomach.
No,
I understand.
a Senegalese peanut soup would be very, very good with that Sauvignon Blanc too. Yeah, Senegal, the peanut soup of Senegal. It's a wonderful dish. If you've never had it, find it, eat it, and have that wine with it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. But there's just so many wonderful people and so many wonderful dishes from around the world. I would just like to just say that keep cooking, because I'm here to keep eating. So Bobby, when we talked about traveling for 10 years would have been the perfect point to really push the wine cruise. But what do we have coming up next week, sir, with the wine for this next episode?
Yes, we are in week 88 next week. Obviously 87 this week, 88 next week. We are on, it's homage to Cyber Week, and also a part of early Christmas gifts. So this week I released it because, Cyber Monday, when everybody's, inundating everybody with emails, and especially with us here, like gift giving time, I mean, nothing better than to support, your local Texas winery and Becker Vineyards here, which, we're happy to be with you guys. So next week, we have the 2018 Viognier Reserve. We have our 2018 Roussanne Reserve, and then 2019 Tempranillo Reserve. Now, these are part of different bundles of gift packs that we have that we're sending out. That when we send out the email, they have separate different gift packs. So just wanted to kind of showcase different parts of each one of them, so that you're not like they're back to back.
Okay, right on. That sounds perfect. Any other news from Lake Wobegon, Kaylin?
I don't think so.
Okay.
None off the top of my head.
I just want to say it's a pleasure to keep doing this, and I feel like I should just say something, since Dad is not here. The world feels like a hard place right now. We have this new Omicron variant. It feels like we just keep getting hard news, but I have to say that we will be here on Wednesdays with a glass of wine and a smile and great conversation. And we love to have you all join us. We love to share this with you. So, we hope it gives you some relief from everything going on in your life. And thank you for everyone that's been here. Thank you for our winery staff and John that continues to just make this a wonderful thing.
Well, I will raise my glass to that, and many thanks to everyone, but thank you guys for allowing us in your living rooms for an hour every week. Cheers, good wine, great health. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.